What does a New World Order have to do with the Jews? Well, it's not what you probably think, especially if you're not Jewish listening to this. You probably think it's the Jews that are doing it. The Goyim, no, I've seen that a lot. Like, Goyim just means nation, by the way. We're also called a Goy Kadosh. We're called a nation of the holy, a holy nation. So what does it have to do with the Jews? Well, basically, the Jews can do something about the New World Order. That is coming. It is coming. It's what they want to do. The WEF wants to do it. The UN, the WHO, they're all working together with their Agenda 2030, with their war on farms, with their, they want to implement the 15-minute cities, with all that, great stuff that they're talking about, own nothing and be happy. That's what they want from you. They want you to own nothing, and they don't actually care if you're happy, just to let you know. Everything that happened during COVID, all that trial run of the vaccine passports, and what could happen if they make us a cashless society, okay? They want total control, okay? And so that is called the New World Order. But guess what? Just as King Solomon told us, there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new. Nothing is new. Even our technology, by the way, is not new. I'm not really going to go into that right now, but you can see that the world is heading towards slavery, basically, for 99% of us. Or if we want, if the Jews would listen up for a second, and I'll explain, but we can choose a redemption, okay? So what is a redemption? Who is the Moshiach? Listen, this is why it's a choice, okay? Because the Jewish nation is a holy nation. And I feel like a lot of people, again, this class, like my channel is called For Me to Jew. So it's mostly meant for Jews. It's meant for Jews. I'm trying to awaken Jews to the fact that we're not supposed to be living over here with the 70 nations, with their ideology and their customs and their ways, or no customs and no ways, like we're just, but a Jew, if you're born a Jew, there's a certain ideology, there's a certain information, there's a certain way that you need to act and live according to the Torah. Okay, this is none of I don't have an opinion on any of this. And by the way, I also grew up here. I also didn't believe in God, and I also didn't do literally anything. I didn't know about anything. We didn't do anything, okay? And I didn't believe in it. And I, in fact, was like all caught up in other ideologies and other spiritual practices, and I had no clue. But you know what? In the Torah, it does tell us time after time after time again to investigate our history, investigate our past. We have an unbroken chain, okay? If you go and investigate history here, there's a lot of questions. Okay, there's a lot of time missing in the timelines. There's a lot of what ifs and it could be's, and it's like everything is possible here. Is it possible that aliens seeded planet Earth? Everything is possible. Everything's possible. Is it possible that it's just a random, explosion of the cosmos that created our entirely perfect system of, our ecosystem and our atmosphere, and our human bodies are just perfect, and we and that was just random? It's possible. Everything's possible, okay? And even I was like, it's possible that we're, God, what we refer to as God, is just an alien. Like, yeah, everything's possible. However, there's an unbroken chain of information that went from God to Adam, then to Seth, who was the son that they had after Cain and Abel, then Noah, okay? And then there was a flood that happened because people, and I actually have a lot of different classes on this that explain what happened and how that happened, and all the things that, as far as I understand it from the Torah. So I'm not going to get into here, but just know that there is an unbroken chain of information. Okay, Adam and Eve, they knew Methuselah, who came in, who was here, Methuselah. And he was the oldest man that ever lived, okay? And he knew Noah, so it was like word of mouth, okay? And then Noah, as you all know, I'm sure, the story of the ark, Noah, with his 3 sons, Ham, Japhet, and Shem, they were the ones that repopulated the earth after the flood, okay? And so when we talk about anti-Semitism, We're talking about this, anti-Shem, okay? Because Shem was given the information, this information, and it was important information that needs to be guarded. It's not like just everyone, knows it, because that's what happened at the flood, is that everyone knew about God, but little by little they got away from that, and God created different energies, and they started, worshiping the energies in addition to God, and then little by little they started to forget about God completely, and because there's power to these other energies. Like God gave the ability of different energies, let's just say, okay, and in Hebrew it's called Elim. Now, again, if you read the Torah in Hebrew, which is a holy language, it doesn't really translate into English, okay, because there's so many things with the holy language of Hebrew that is much deeper than what you can translate. For example, there's different ways to spell certain things, okay? So for example, toldot, which is basically like generations, okay? Or the progeny or something, okay? Now, if you spell it with two vavs, it means something. But many times you see it spelled just with one vav or no vavs, which is this letter here, okay? Which is also one of the letters in the name of God. And so that's like a hint, but in English, it's just translated still generations. These are the generations of Noah. These are the generations of Isaac. These are the generations of Esav. But they're spelt differently. And then there's all of our sages and our rabbis have gone and written books, like, several books on just this word. Okay, so that's why people learn the Torah their whole lives. And that's why when you read it in English, it may not affect you so much. And it's okay, you don't know Hebrew. That's a tragedy, actually, that the nation of Israel has gotten away from that. A lot of people that are Jews don't know Hebrew. But there's a book called, Mo'em Lo'ez by Rav Yaakov Kuli. Maybe I'll put it in the comments, okay? That's a very important book. And even 300 years ago, he saw that people were starting to lose their Hebrew. And if you lose your Hebrew, you can't understand the Torah as well. Okay, so he wrote Mo'em Lo'ez, which was then translated from Ladino. It was written in Ladino at the time, and then was translated by Rav Aryeh Kaplan, who was brilliant person, into English. And it's in Spanish. I know it's in many different languages, so please go and get that, and you'll know so much more about the Torah. It will speak to you, because it's supposed to speak to your very heart. It's in your heart. That's what God tells us. So this information from God went through this line to Noah, okay, and then he had Ham and Yafed and Shem got the information. And so anti-Semitism is against this information. Why? Because other nations, okay, and again, if there's non-Jews listening to this, I'm not saying that everybody who's not a Jew is a Satan worshiper, okay? Listen carefully. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying as complete nations, they don't serve actual God. And I have other classes about Christianity and about a little bit about Islam and all that stuff came later. But there is an unbroken chain here, and there are books, and there was everything that was saved. And Shem and his grandson Eber, they had an academy, okay? And it's very interesting in this academy is that Shem taught this information, and Eber taught what was this ideology, the 70 nation ideology. And it was important for people to know both, so they would be able to look at reality and society and figure out what is true and what is not true. What is the truth and what is a lie? Why? Have you ever heard of the tree of knowledge of good and bad? Right? That's where good and bad are mixed. And it's difficult to see that. But the Torah and this information is just true. It's just true. So if you learn this information, then you're able to see. But if you don't know what's happening over here, it may be confusing. Which I think is the issue right now, is that not a lot of people, not a lot of rabbis know what's going on over here, okay? And then I think that a lot of people don't actually pay that much attention to the fact that it's 5,784, that's our year, out of a total possible 6,000 years. So we're at the end. We're at the end of time. We're not at the beginning, okay? We're not at the beginning. We're not even in the middle. We are at the end, and therefore all of the prophecies are for us. All of the prophecies. The prophecy of Hoshea ben Be'eri, by the way. Okay, and I went and looked at this because I saw Be'eri, and I was like, Kibbutz Be'eri on October 7th. And yeah, it says exactly what happened in Kibbutz Be'eri. It says that in Hoshea ben Be'eri. So we have to take some of these things seriously. And even if we weren't sure about this and this timeline, who said whatever, take a look at the agendas of the New World Order, okay? They're not life-affirming. They're not something that can sustain itself. You know, if there are no genders and there's no marriage and people are altering their reproductive systems at an early age that's irreversible, how long do you think that the world is going to continue? Okay, let's just say that there was no creator, even though it doesn't really make sense. Try to explain to yourself evolution and all this stuff. Yeah, I was also a scientist, by the way. That's what I thought happened. But there's a lot of holes in the theory of evolution. And even most scientists don't believe in that anymore. We just learn it in their education system and their indoctrination system. And then we never really question it after that because we're busy trying to make a living, by the way. So it doesn't really make sense. And so all these agendas, the war on farming, you don't think that they want a famine? They definitely want a famine. You can look around, you can see it. Why is your food so expensive? Why are they doing all these things to the farmers? Why is there all the, the German farmers, the Dutch farmers, and by the way, the Israeli farmers. The Israeli farmers are suffering very much right now because of October 7th. Now, when Hamas came in the south, where was the IDF? We'll get to that, okay? Because, again, this goes with the anti-Semitism. Didn't we all think that never again, it's never going to happen again? The Holocaust would never have happened if there was a state of Israel, if Jews had their own army. And then we all just thought that it was super strong and no one would dare because the IDF will save us and prevent another Holocaust. Well, is that the case right now? Like, really, if you're honest? Even if you're not even honest, I mean, you just have to look at the facts that on October 7th, the army was nowhere to be found. Where they were to be found outside of Kibbutz Be'eri waiting. Okay, that's eyewitness testimony. They were waiting. They had stand-down orders. So the lie of the never again and anti-Semitism, you see anti-Semitism is rising here. And we are told that when these things happen, it's a hint from God to come back to his Torah, to come back to investigate your history as a Jew, and to look, there's certain things that we can do, okay? So it is up to us in a certain degree. I mean, actually, I'm not even going to just be like gentle about how I say these things. It is up to us if we're going towards a new world order, which is slavery. All right, it is Mitzrayim again. That's Egyptian slavery once more, or the redemption, because God gave us a Torah. Okay, the first redemption out of Egypt was from the merit of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, our forefathers. Again, this information went down through Shem and Eber, through Shem to Abraham, and then to Yitzchak, then to Yaakov, and Yaakov became Israel. This is a spiritual, addition to Yaakov, and he had 12 tribes. I'm going to talk very briefly about Levi, who from the tribe of Levi came Moses, and he brought down the Torah for us. Okay, so he basically wrote it all down for us in the written and in the oral Torah. That's why it's very good to get Moen Loez, because he has both just written down there, very easy to read, and you can understand everything that happened, your whole history, which you're commanded to do, which a lot of us didn't do when we were over here, because we didn't see the need to. But now maybe you can see the need, because what's going to happen is more and more as we're going towards redemption, regardless of what we do. It's just how far into their new world order we want to go before we cry out to God to save us. So what I'm suggesting is we are aware of the timeline. Okay, and just like Eber knew what was happening here, we kind of also know. Okay, we know that the Freemasons, this is information that this is like Ham, who was wicked, and he was alive before the flood, so he knew a lot of information that because of that people were destroyed, but he carried on a tradition. And then also, there's other ideologies here, and especially also the Erev Rav. Okay, again, I have lots of different classes that explain this a little bit more, but if you're a little bit clued into the fact that there are a bunch of people who seem to want for the 99% of humanity to be enslaved, and total chaos is breaking out. And by the way, the free and other people, they serve Satan or other gods, okay? So for example, if you look at the Clinton emails, I really don't have a lot of room here. Clinton emails, Clinton and Podesta emails, that they were all released a long time ago, by the way. And they talk about a god of Canaan, okay, which they sacrifice children to, okay? So, I mean, how does that make sense to you if you don't know any of this? Who was Canaan? Well, he was from the line of Ham, Canaan, and you may know some of the story that we went into before it became the land of Israel. It was the land of Canaan, and when Israel was taken out by God from Egypt, we got the Torah, and then we conquered the land of Canaan, and we made it the land of Israel. And then we had a king who came from the tribe of Yehuda, and he became king, and he was King David. And then we had a kingdom of David. And this is what we want to restore in the world. So instead of having a new world order where we're all enslaved, we want freedom for the entire world. And we want to have the land of Israel with the kingdom of David. And we want to rebuild the temple. And then we want our connection with God again to be complete, because it's broken right now. It's broken because of us, because we wandered over here into the 70 nation territory, okay? And it's very esoteric, it's very spiritual, okay? When there's Jews over here in this ideology, wherever you are, okay? This whole line of information, what happens here is that God is the creator of the world, and he's also the sustainer of life. Everything comes from God. And the Jews, their work, our work, is to bring that blessing into our reality, okay? So reality is not very easy to explain. It's like there's many different levels of spiritual worlds and how everything happens, and the Jews and their work are supposed to bring that into our reality. But what happens is when Jews are over here in this ideology, it fuels this. It fuels their system, basically. And what they're trying to do is go towards a new world order. Okay, and that's just what the Tower of Babel was, by the way. So again, we're going to go through this very quickly. From God knew Adam and Eve. That information got passed down through Seth to Noah. Then there was the flood, and only surviving people were Ham, Yafet, and Shem. They were anti-Shemi, okay? Anti-Shemi, anti-Semitism. Through the line of Shem came Abraham, then Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Abraham had other kids, Ishmael, and the sons of Keturah. We're not going to talk about them right now. They're just other people that became this. They have different ideology. They have different information. They have different customs, and they have different traditions. They have different gods in lowercase. They have different gods that they worship, okay? Like this, Clintons, okay? And it's not God. It's not God. So even a lot of other religions, let's just say, they consider God, it's not the creator of the universe. This is the information. This is where it went. It went to the Jews. It went to the offspring of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov through the 12 tribes. And one of those tribes was Levi, who from there came Moses, and then he brought that down, like we said, the Torah, and we became a nation of Israel when we came out of slavery. Okay, we went down to Egypt. You may know the story of Passover. So Joseph went down, and there was a famine in all the world. And why is this interesting? Because one of the agendas here is the war on farms. Again, we said during October 7th that because of that, the Israeli farms are now suffering, okay? And also all the foreign workers, like, why would Hamas kill the massacre, the Thailandi workers that were down there on the farms? Like, why? Because they want to disrupt our farming also. That is a goal of the New World Order. They want a famine. They want to consolidate all the resources to the 1%. And then they want to dole it out to us according to our social score, our social whatever score, okay? So how loyal you are to this, you'll get your, food or you won't. And by the way, it's a little bit of what happened here. When Joseph went down to Egypt and he became the viceroy of all of Egypt, and there was a famine, he was in charge of allocating the food. And what he did was he moved populations around. Okay, that's also another thing that the New World Order does. They're moving populations. They have the mass immigration. Okay, and we can see how these things are hurting, like they're for the global agenda, how they're kind of counter. Like you may think this doesn't make sense. It does make sense in their overall plan, okay? Because it's basically what Joseph did. He moved populations, and then he also, when people ran out of money, so they used all of their money to buy food. When they ran out of money, he took their land, and he gave this all to Pharaoh, to Pharaoh in Egypt, and that's why Egypt became like the most powerful nation, which after that, as a thank you to Joseph, enslaved all of Israel. But that was God's plan, okay? And so that's what they're doing. That's what they want to do. They're eventually, food's going to be so expensive, you're going to sell your land for food, and then you're going to be owning nothing and being happy. And if you don't sell it, they're going to take it. They're taking farms, okay? Or if they don't, if you're here in Israel, they'll just massacre you, So, I mean, and then they'll shut down your farms, okay? And it's right now, there's a big movement called Save the Farms in Israel. You can go look it up, Save the Farms or Save Israeli Farms. We may not have food in the spring because of this. This is all very difficult to explain, but it all makes sense if you can see the bigger picture, okay? And that's why also in the prophet Joel, he says there's a famine coming at the end of time, okay? We can see it coming. We know their agenda. We see here what happened on October 7th, and we know that the farms are in trouble. Not just here in Israel, everywhere. But Israel, we're supposed to cry out for God for the redemption. We want the redemption. And again, this redemption, this final redemption, is not going to come because of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, their merit. That's what happened the first time. But now we have the Torah, and we're commanded to learn it. We're told all over and over, learn your history, know where you come from, and learn the Torah, and know your own, how you're supposed to live. You're not supposed to live like the other nations, okay? If you're a Jew over here, you're being called back now. That's what anti-Semitism does. It's supposed to awaken you to the fact that you're not one of them. You don't blend in. Just like during Holocaust 1.0, I'm calling it, okay? Because there was Holocaust 2.0 here in Israel. And again, we said the lie, we're never again, because the IDF was going to make sure that, and if there's ever a rise in anti-Semitism to the point where there's like Kristallnacht and all the things that happened in Germany, then the Jews will just come to Israel and be safe. But you know what? Are they safe here? Are the Jews safe in Israel and Zionist Israel? And I have a whole thing about Zionism and why, the land of Israel, we're not supposed to live with a different ideology than the Torah. The land of Israel right now, the state of Israel, doesn't have the Torah as its laws. And most observant Jews live in terrible conditions. If I tell you terrible conditions, you would not even understand. Like there are people, families, basically living in converted storage spaces, with no windows. And in the ghettos, that a 2-bedroom apartment costs $800,000 American dollars, and it's zero amenities. Like it's ridiculous what's happening here. Not to mention what happened during the Yom Kippur and all the things that we were prevented from praying in Tel Aviv. And there was a conversation that could even Jews hold public prayers that are separating male and female. Like yes, the Arabs can do it here, and the Arabs, by the way, can have their minzarim, their call to prayer 3 a.m., 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a day. That's fine. But the Jewish ghettos, if they try to have their music before Shabbat, letting people know that Shabbat is coming, well, that's not allowed. Like it's a very strange place for the Jews, Israel. Okay, and we see that it's not the case of never again, because Holocaust 2.0 happened in Israel. So now where are you safe, Jews? And you know, the whole point of everything for the end of the redemption is to realize that you cannot rely on man. That's what Hosea says. Hosea in his prophecy, if you look at Hosea 14, chapter 14, you see basically everything that happened in Kibbutz Be'eri. Okay, and he says that people will realize you can't trust in man. Everything that you thought was here to help you, the Red Cross, your universities, your human rights organizations, everything that you thought was here, because Jews are just like everyone else, right? Israel is just a country like everyone else. Everyone, you know, but it's not. You see, no one stood up for you, for us. No one went to see if the hostages are alive or dead, if they're being fed, if they're being raped. Nope, no one cared. No one cared. No one did anything. And you know what? I got a lot of comments on one of my videos of people mad at me, like, oh, I'm so ungrateful because the people of the United States spend a lot of their tax money propping up the state of Israel. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. The state of Israel. You know where that money goes? I don't know, because right now the IDF is begging for food from the civilians. Civilians are paying for food. Civilians are paying for equipment. Civilians are paying, where we already pay over 50% in taxes to the government. Most of the money goes to the IDF and security. So first of all, did the security even work on October 7th? Nope. And then why now are people like literally just making sandwiches all day long for the soldiers? Where's the money going? So don't. And by the way, you know, Israel exists by the grace of God, and I think we've seen that. So again, the whole point here, the whole purpose, and I was talking about Joel as the next prophecy after Hosea, and he talks about a famine. So now we see some prophecies lining up with the agenda, okay? The war on farms, scarcity. This is all the exact opposite of holiness. Holiness, when we look at the temple, especially the first temple, it was peace on earth. There was a lot of wisdom, because that was King Solomon. There was abundance, there was health, there was everything. And that's what we want again. That's from God. God is the creator, and God sustains us. He gives us health, he protects us, he, you know, and he wants that for the whole entire world. And it's supposed to come down through the Jews. Why? Not because we're so great. We're not great. We're less than great right now, you could say. And that's why all these things are happening to us, okay? So it's supposed to come down through our service, because we're supposed to be a holy nation. A holy nation. Where did I write holy? We're supposed to be a holy nation. And we're supposed to, through our efforts, through our service to God, which is, you know, at the very least, learning Torah, keeping Shabbat, keeping the Brit, putting on tefillin if you're a man, and having a mezuzah on your house. Now, again, I'm not judging. I'm just saying, like, we have to wake up and see where we are, first on the timeline, from the information that we know in our tradition and in our history, but also take a look around, okay? Do you want the New World Order? It's crazy. It's not going to be good. So we're having lots of things that happen in our world to grab your attention, to say you are in the wrong place if you are not at least doing these things. You are fueling this Tower of Babel. That's what the Tower of Babel was. The Tower of Babel was a one world order, a new world order. That's what they were, and that was King Nimrod. And it says in the Torah that at the end of time, which is now, all of the souls from all of this, the flood people's souls and the Tower of Babel people's souls, will come back and be in our time, because God is going to bring the smackdown on them when the redemption happens, and they're going to be, because up until now, there's reincarnation. But at a certain time, that's going to stop, and their souls are going to be lost forever. So we're fueling it if we're over here. And again, I grew up in this ideology. We didn't keep Shabbat. I didn't really understand the Brit. I thought it was mutilation of the male body. I don't really care about it one way or other, to be honest. I didn't know about tefillin and the mezuzah. I didn't realize the significance. We had one on our doorpost, but just on one. And I don't think it had anything inside it, okay? So I didn't even know that there was supposed to be something inside it, okay? And these are very significant. These are signs between us, the Jews, and God. And we saw a lot of people get saved on October 7th by pretty much begging God to save them and promising that they would keep Shabbat or cover their hair if they were women or put on tefillin. There's so many stories out there, just Google them. I mean, people who were like, you know, being shot at by the terrorists were saying, you know, like, God, please save me and I'll keep Shabbat. And then the terrorists just went away. Or people yelled out Shema Yisrael and the terrorists just left. So that's personal redemption. But what we want is a total redemption. And what Joel says is coming after this is a famine, which we can see they want. So, and he tells us to avoid the famine, we have to fast. This is super messy. I'm so sorry. I tried not to, but Joel tells us to fast. Okay, we just had a public fast, which is basically to say sorry that the temple was ultimately, first temple was destroyed. That was on the 10th of Tevet, which was just last Friday. But there's more opportunities to fast on Shovavim. Go and Google this. Is coming up, I think, in 2 weeks or next week, maybe whenever we read Shemot from the Torah. So every week we read a different Torah portion. And when we start Shemot all the way up to Mishpatim, during those weeks, any day that you fast during those weeks, and you cannot fast on Shabbat, then that's like extra fasting. And we need to do that to avoid a famine. Okay, so it's really up to us. That God will save us at any time if we just call out to him. We need to ask for the Moshiach. And who is the Moshiach? It's not somebody's Rebbe who has already been here and died. Okay, it is going to be somebody from the line of King David. Okay, who is going to be, who, you know, his progeny is in every generation. And it's going to be someone who becomes enlightened by the Torah. And it's going to be a certain time. So either all of Israel will cry out. And again, how much pressure do you want? Because we know that the redemption will come. This is from the Ari HaKadosh, by pressure, repentance, and then redemption. So how much pressure do you need? That's called dochak. Dochak, tshuva, and geula, redemption. So the pressure are things like rising anti-Semitism. How much do you want that to rise? You know, do we want to see another Kristallnacht? Do we want to see more protests? Do we want violence? You know, how much more pressure do you want? Or could it be like COVID with all their, you know, manufactured diseases and forced injections and stuff? Do you want it to be 15-minute cities? You know, it could be anything. Want it to be famine? Like, I don't. So how much pressure do we need to repent? What do we need to do to repent? Fast. Okay, you can fast anytime except, like I said, for Shabbat. But Shovavim, again, this is going to be 8 weeks this year, because we have an extra 2 weeks, basically, because we have an extra month this month from the start of Shemot, when we read Shemot, until we read Mishpatim, where during those weeks it's like extra potent, the time that you will fast. But everybody, if you're a Jew, please start keeping Shabbat, which means that you light the candles. If you're a woman, you light the candles, you make challah if you can, and you have 3 meals. Not 2, not 1, 3. And then you don't use electricity. I have another class. It's like basic, like, how do I start? And just start and go and ask your rabbis, your Orthodox rabbis. Don't go to any sects or any cults. Just go to your mainstream Orthodox rabbi and they'll help you. Learn Shabbat. Google, how do I keep Shabbat? And just do your best. Just start. Keep the Brit Milah, which means keep all your sexual activity holy. Holy. What does that mean? Let's talk about that another time. But it just means basically you're married. If you're a man, you're married to a woman. If you're a woman, you're married to a man. There are only 2 genders. Okay. Okay, if you think there's other genders, it's this ideology. It's not this. If you know that you're a Jew right now in this day and age, it's because your family has kept this information and it was passed down from father and son until now, from the beginning. Okay, and you're expected to keep that first, not to restrict you, but to keep you safe and to keep you holy. And you know what? I just read on Shabbat that Hashem, like God, he's sad in a way. Okay, we have to relate to God with emotions that we can understand, and things that we can understand. But it's like he's sad that we don't even know. You know, we're not proud to be Jews. If you're over here, it's like, and we don't know how noble we are. Avraham was like the king of the world. Everyone knew Avraham and everyone respected him. Same with Yitzchak and Yaakov especially. He was like, I mean, when Yaakov died, he went down to Egypt and he died in Egypt. And when he came up, came up back to the land of Canaan to bury him in the Marat Machpelah, the Machpelah cave in Hebron. And everybody, I mean, all of Egypt came up, all the nobles, all the kings of Canaan came, all the kings of Esav's and Ishmael's prodigy came, and they hung their crowns on his coffin. And they I mean, mad respect, like, and everyone was afraid of the 12 tribes, the sons, because they were mighty, and because they had this information of God, and God fought for them. And so we have to realize that our hopes cannot be in man, anything a man. It can't be in the Zionist state of Israel that doesn't follow the laws of the Torah, there's nothing Jewish about the state of Israel, okay? And because of that, we're getting because of that, October 7th even could have happened, because people were not celebrating with the Torah and Simchat Torah, and because of a lot of reasons that I have in other classes, okay? So that's what's happening. What's happening is a rise in anti-Semitism. What's happening is a movement of the 70 nations towards a new world order. And what has to happen, who's going to save you from the 15-minute cities? Who's going to provide for you when they consolidate all of the resources? You know, when we see what's happening, and we see now even too, all of the billionaires and gazillionaires and trizillionaires are building underground bunkers. Why do you think that's happening? Because there's either going to be a natural disaster, okay, that's also written in Joel. And we know about HARP, okay? That could be, however it comes, because God ultimately wants to wake you up and get your attention, to call out for him for the redemption, to redeem us. By redeeming us, we're basically saving the whole world, okay? It's not just about the Jews. It's about everyone. It's about everything. It's about our reality and our system in our world, basically. Okay, so we choose. We want the new world order, or we want the redemption. We want the Moshiach, and again, the Moshiach is going to just be somebody in our generation who is a man born of a woman, who is from the line, from the lineage of King David. We don't know who that is, but it's going to be someone enlightened by the Torah, okay? And he's going to understand how to manipulate basically reality from the spiritual side, because it's like a program, like a computer program, like the Matrix, okay? It's similar in a way, we can understand it like that, reality, because there's a spiritual component and a physical component. And we're actually told in the book of Yetzirah, which is that the dimensions of our universe, it's 5-dimensional, 3 in the physical. 1 is spiritual, and 1 is time. Okay, but it starts in the spiritual. The spiritual is like the source code, okay? The source code. And then the physical is like the program that's running. So the Moshiach, okay, which is just the name, the title that we give to this man, will come and understand how to manipulate the source code of this reality to destroy basically these people. Because guess what? They also have information that was passed down from Ham that came from before the flood. okay? And other people, who I'm not going to go into right now, but they have other spiritual information, and they're manipulating our source code in a way to move in this direction. And they've had many decades and centuries to move it towards a certain goal, which is the New World Order, which was the Tower of Babel under King Nimrod. And now we're getting towards the end. It's the end of time. Okay, so again, we don't have a lot of people who are in like the rabbis of today that are like Eber, who know exactly what's happening here. We do have a few. We have a few, but they're some are just speaking in Hebrew, and so a lot of people are unfamiliar with them, and some are English. But overall, the leaders of the nation of Israel, whether it be the leaders in government or whatever in the rabbinut, the head rabbis and stuff, they're all part of the Erev Rav, which is a group of magicians and evil people, basically, that came out of Egypt with the nation of Israel, okay? And they cause a lot of problems, and they're not good guys, let's just put it that way. And so they are also the heads of, there's 5 groups, and one of the groups are the rabbis. And we're told that at the end of time, the head rabbis, are going to be Erev Rav. Why do you think the head rabbis never call for the nation of Israel to do a fast, Because when there's decrees against Israel, and we see that things are going badly for the nation of Israel, the first thing we're always supposed to do is fast, just like during Purim, if you remember the whole thing with Queen Esther and Mordechai, the Jew. There was a Haman and a Achashverosh. They were trying to wipe out the entire nation of Israel, and so they fasted. And so we don't see any real helpful information coming out from the head rabbis these days. So and it says also at the end of time that at the end of time, we're going to be a nation without leaders. We're going to be like orphans, and we all have to go and look for ourselves at our history. We have to investigate. I have another class that's called Why the Jews Are Commanded Not to Believe in God. He tells us, don't believe, because if you believe, you're going to start just following your heart, and it's going to lead you here, and it's going to lead you there. You have to learn with your head. Learn with your head and see the unbroken chain of information that happened here. It's all written down here. Everything makes sense when you really investigate and learn. Know that when you learn it in English, it's not exactly as, I don't know how to say it, like it doesn't strike exactly the same way, because there's, like we said, the holy language is slightly different. But go and get yourself Moam Loez, okay? And just learn. But first, keep Shabbat. That is a sign between you and God that you are a Jew. If you're not keeping Shabbat, just start. Keep the Brit. If you need to be married, and that's a whole other class. And I think I have some information on that in other classes of mine. But you're not considered a whole soul unless you're married. It's proper and right to be married. Okay. In this ideology, there's no reason to be married. I also didn't think that for most of my life. I thought, why bother getting married? It's just like a governmental thing or whatever. I don't need that piece of paper. It doesn't mean anything. And it doesn't if you're over here. It does if you're over here, because it's everything. It's everything to be a complete and whole soul. So you're able to do your work like you're supposed to do. Tefillin and mezuzah. Okay? So do your best to try and investigate and come back to live like a Jew so we don't have more pressure. Remember? Pressure. Repentance, redemption. How much more pressure do you want? That's what's up to us. We can come back now and cry out for God. We can fast, especially on Shovavim. Go check that out. Shovavim. Google it. Ask your rabbis. A lot of religious rabbis, a lot of religious people that I know don't do Shovavim. I don't know why. I really don't know why. It's like, okay, even like the religious people here are kind of settled in their ways. They're kind of comfortable with what they do, what they don't do. I'm not saying everybody, but it's like there's no real urgency to the fact that we're at the end of time, which there should be. October 7th, it was like Some people, some rabbis now are saying that's the first dochak, that's the first pressure for the beginning of the redemption. I think that COVID was the first one. Okay, and in fact, a lot of people woke up during COVID and they said, this is crazy. They started investigating over here, New World Order, all their Agenda 2030 and stuff, and they came back. They did tshuva, they came back, they repented, and they became religious, okay? Some people on October 7th, that was the pressure that woke them up. And even we see many stories of people who got saved in the moment, okay? And after. It's smart to learn from other people's experiences. You don't need your own October 7th. You don't need your own rise in anti-Semitism around you. You don't need your own confusion and pressure. Learn from other people's pressures and come back to what they did. Do what we're supposed to do, which is repent, live like a Jew. So was that enough pressure, or are we going to need more pressure? And Joel tells us that the next pressure could be a natural disaster. And we see again all these billionaires making their underground bunkers and all this stuff. Or it could be a famine. Okay, we know that there's a war on farms. We saw in Israel from October 7th that a lot of the farmers are in trouble. And we know, I was starting to say this whole thing with Joseph, that's what he did. He during the global famine there, he consolidated everything in Egypt. And then when people ran out of their money, because they would come and pay for grain, he took their livestock, and then he took their land, and then everyone became a serf to Pharaoh. And that's how Egypt accumulated all the money, and they became the most powerful nation on the earth, and they were able to enslave everybody. Okay, so what they didn't achieve here in the Tower of Babel, they achieved to some degree in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. And that's what the New World Order wants to do. They've never forgotten that. This is eternal thing. This is why also this is an eternal thing, the holy nation of Israel and the work that we're supposed to do. We can't really do it without the temple. We need the temple to be built again, but we need all the Jews to come home into this ideology and to investigate and to learn. Go ask your rabbis and definitely start keeping Shabbat. Keep your brit. Wear tefillin, put tefillin on every day except for Shabbat. And I recently heard a rabbi talking about tefillin, because it says that even if you just put it on once in your life, then you're saved from Gehinnom. You still go to Gehinnom maybe if depending on what you do. What is Gehinnom? It's hell. Okay, I also seen lately a lot of Jews on social media saying that Jews don't believe in hell. Oh yes we do. That's wrong. That's not your tradition. If you would learn your tradition, so it's usually Reform Jews or Jews that don't even look like Jews. How does a Jew look? He dresses different than the 70 nations. The women are modest. We cover our hair with a scarf or something, not a wig, because what does that do? So we do believe in hell. It's called Gehinnom. Okay, and it's scary. Everything that happens after we die is terrifying. Okay, if we don't learn about it and do things to prevent going here. So one of the things is tefillin. If you don't at least put tefillin on once in your life, you may never get out of hell. That's what I heard a rabbi talking about in a class just this week. Okay, so we do believe in hell. It's terrifying. It's called Gehinnom. So you need to at least put tefillin on yourself once, and not just like out on the street, or some cults go out and they wrap tefillin on you wherever you are. It's not like that. They're very holy. You have to do prayers. You have to, beforehand, you have to be in a state of purity. You can't just be, and you can't just be out in the public and out, you're an airline pilot or you're a Santa Claus in a mall, and they're just gonna wrap some tefillin on you. That's stupid. That's stupidity. And God doesn't want us to be stupid. God wants us to use our brains and investigate what it means to be a Jew, and then to do it, to learn about God. And by learning and understanding, then you will do the things. Otherwise, you're just practicing some things. You don't know why you're doing them, how you're doing them, how you're supposed to do them. And he's commanded us not to believe in him. He's commanded us to learn and know him, and then you will believe. Then you will believe from a point of understanding, from a point of knowledge. That's a more secure belief than just believing in whatever is possible over here. is God an alien? Possible. I'm just going to believe that. That doesn't make any sense. Let's learn our information that was handed down to us from every generation, and let's choose not to go this route to the New World Order. Rather, let's choose to have the redemption with the Moshiach, who is going to be from the line of King David, then the temple, and reconnect our connection to God. Let's get saved. Let me know if you have questions.